and fabrication, dry cleaning, um, auto shops, and providing engineering support for the transition to less toxic chemical alternatives. So we're going to have Joy kind of share a little bit with us about what might be resources available to us as we go through the summer, and also a few kind of case studies to kind of build on the expertise that Joy has built up over the past several decades. Thank you, Joy, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for the invitation to speak with you guys today. Yeah, just a little bit more about my background. I've only been with ERG for about a year, but before that, I was with the Toxic Use Reduction Institute for about 15 years. I worked with community groups as well as businesses and industries. So I feel like I've very recently been on the other side of the program and can understand both what the state folks are doing with their programs, as well as the interns and their search for pollution prevention projects and solutions for the facilities that they're working with. So I was asked to speak specifically about ERG resources, but I actually took a step back and sort of widened the scope, I guess, if you will, to try to help out the interns and your programs as much as possible, including resources that are available through ERG. So with that, I will get started. So it seems like, I think there's at least 10 plus interns on the call. And my understanding is that they're out in the facilities and they're getting going on their summer internships. So hopefully these resources will be valuable to them. As soon as I can, there we go. Okay, so thinking about those of you sitting in these facilities, maybe you've just gotten there, you're just sort of getting your feet wet, trying to figure out where the lunchroom is and where the engineer sits that you need to go talk to. And maybe you're scratching your head a little bit and wondering where to get started. Maybe you already have projects that you were aware of and were identified before you got to the facility. Either way, I think this sort of process of going through these resources will help you figure out what options are out there, what people have already done, what solutions may apply to your facilities that you're working with. So if you're not sure where to start, here's a suggestion for sort of a cascading, a series of resources that you can look into. And I'm going to go into each of these types of resources in more detail. But the suggestion would be that you start with a bunch of online tools and resources that are out there and exist that EPA has made available to everybody, to the public, and a lot of them which ERG has supported for the pollution prevention program at EPA. Then there's the actual pollution prevention grantee, the EPA P2 project officer with the region, and then also the P2 hub helpline, which I'll give you more details about, which is a specific ERG resource available. So I'm going to start with that online option, thinking that maybe you want to sort of better educate yourself about what's out there before you go asking people questions, and you can do some internet research. And these are more targeted searches beyond just a simple Google search, which may turn up some good information, but this will give you some more pointed direction for you to go in. So simply literally going to the EPA P2 homepage. I think this recording will be available to folks, and the slides can be available to folks that have the links on here. But if you literally just go to epa.gov/P2, you're going to find a whole bunch of different directions you can go in just to educate yourself a little bit more about the world of P2, the scope of P2, what it encompasses, and what's available to you. So there's a whole bunch of resources stemming from that homepage to get you started. There's different graphics, there's different videos to just get some basic education. There's also a really great search tool that's available. Again, there's the link, and that can be made available to you. But this is a tool that ERG has developed for EPA, and it's a simple search tool. There's been a whole host of resources, like any of the P2 resources that could be found. They used to exist in regional hubs, and now they've been folded into this one national search tool. So you can go in, you can search by keyword, by sector, by process, and it will list programs, case studies, videos, additional links. So it's a great wealth of information. So I put this slide in here thinking forward. I think that you're going to have a project going over the summer, and then at some point you may be asked to collect data and maybe make some calculations. I know your the folks who've received the grant that you're working under will need to do some reporting about what results you saw through your project work at your facilities. And so these are some calculators, again, that ERG has developed for EPA that can help you in making calculations to understand the impact of your work. And that would include a cost calculator, a greenhouse gas calculator, and how to calculate the reductions in the hazardous substances if you've been working in that arena. So you may not be ready to actually put data into these calculators and have it spit out a result, but it might be helpful to visit those calculators now so you understand what you might be calculating towards the end of your project, and think about what data you might want to be collecting as you do your project, so that when you get to the end, you're not having to backtrack and think about, oh, gee, I wish I collected such and such data. But maybe if you look at the calculators now and get an idea for what you want to collect over the summer, those could be helpful. So now you've done some online searching, maybe you've read some other case studies and learned about other programs that exist out there, but you're still wondering, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do with this facility. They use this terrible substance, or they can't reduce their energy use, whatever your focus is. The P2 grantee, the organization that received the grant from EPA, can be a great resource. They've have likely some experience with other pollution prevention projects and can help point you in the right direction. So don't forget that that's a resource for you to go back to, and don't be hesitant to reach out to them and see what their expertise may be and what other resources they can point you to. And they likely have other contacts within the states in your region, but also other contacts outside of your region who may have been doing similar work. So then there's also your Pollution Prevention Project Officer. I don't know, Chen, you introduce yourself as the liaison. I'm not sure if you count yourself as the project officer here to help point the grantees and the interns in the right direction, but that also can be an excellent resource. Also, someone who has connections to other resources around the country that they can point you to. So then we get to the P2 Hub helpline. So this is a system that was set up that ERG runs, and it's in support of the EPA's pollution prevention program. There are several different ways to reach help at the helpline. And what you gain access to is a whole host of engineers and scientists and experts within ERG and beyond who can help do research and tackle the specific question or problem that you're facing at the facility. So I'm going to walk through a little bit more about how the Hub helpline would work for you and how you can get in touch with us. So if you're curious what type of assistance you can access there, it can be, we can do research on on P2 opportunities that you may be interested in exploring for your facilities, or questions. I'll show you types of questions that have come into the Hub helpline and help explain sort of how you would pose the question to us and how our system will work to get a response to you. But if you are needing help measuring pollution prevention outputs and outcomes and trying to calculate results, like using the calculators that I just showed you, we can help you with actually implementing those tools. We can consult with, it allows you access to consult with engineers and pollution prevention subject matter experts. That's part of the team at ERG that you'll have access to. We also have a great wealth of experience on chemical usage and analysis of chemical usage, and as well as alternatives that may be feasible to replace chemical usage at the facilities that you're working with. Specifically TSCA work plan chemicals. I don't know if you're focusing on any of those at your specific facilities, but there's a great deal of analysis that ERG has performed and has access to that can help you with your projects as well. Also using EPA databases, potentially on past projects that you may want to look into, or other information that EPA has accumulated over the years of hosting and funding these pollution prevention projects. So that's the type of information we can provide and access for you. So here's some helpline sample requests that we've received. You may be interested in finding case studies about BOD reduction in wastewater for food manufacturing. This particular request was related to bakeries, but it can be about other food and beverage facilities, or it can be a little bit more general. I know you guys, there's a bunch of metal fabrication and finishing facilities. I don't know if there's other sectors represented on the call today, but eventually we're going to focus on metal fabrication and finishing and resources available for that sector, but it doesn't have to be only that sector. It can be any sector that you're working with. Folks have called in asking about current and next generation options for chrome plating vapor suppression, looking for forms, checklists, and tools to audit a business for waste reduction opportunities, additional information from EPA data systems on, this was a particular West Virginia automotive maintenance facility. Someone asked about facilities in Minnesota and across the nation that report TCE to the TRI, the Toxic Release Inventory Program, and including their facility contact information. People asked about best practices or case studies of facilities specifically in Tennessee that had TRI chemical reduction successes. And when we get to the section of the presentation where I'm going to talk about resources for metal fabrication and finishing, that was a lot of the research that I'm presenting to you today was a result of a question we got in from Oregon, who was asking about resources specific for pollution prevention projects at metal finishing and fabrication facilities. So those are the types of questions that we can field. Again, it comes in to the hotline, and I'll show you again how you can access us. But the person who is monitoring the hotline can do some basic research. And if they feel that they need additional assistance, they will send a call out to the rest of us within the pollution prevention program at ERG or beyond, seeking out who might have expertise in the area that they need help with, and we'll locate the right person. And then we're able to dedicate a chunk of time to do some research. If the research scope is much bigger than just sort of a handful of hours of research that ERG puts in, we'll get back in touch with you and let you know that it's sort of gone beyond that basic research scope. And then we'll need to seek out additional assistance from EPA to see if we can enlarge the assistance, the scope of the assistance that we provide for your request, depending on what that is. So again, this is how you find the hub folks. And you can email us, simple, p2hub@epa.gov. It comes, ERG monitors that email. So we'll see it. You can reach out by phone and leave a message, or you can fill out an online form at the P2 website. I believe it's at the bottom. You can contact the hub helpline through that form. But we do request that the request actually comes through the pollution prevention grantee at the state, rather than individual interns reaching out. So if the interns can funnel their requests through their state grantee recipient, that's how EPA has asked that they contact the helpline. That way you guys know what they're interested in and what they're looking for, and maybe have other resources and information you can help them with before it comes to the helpline. But we're certainly happy to take any requests that the P2 grantees forward on from the interns or anyone else who's interested. So I think that's my last slide about the hub helpline. Does anybody have any questions about any of those resources? I'm happy to just pause there for a second and see, or we can keep moving. I'll keep moving. Okay. All right. So I was specifically asked about the metal fabrication and finishing sectors, and I happen to have some experience with that with my work at the Toxic Use Reduction Institute. And I happen to be a member of the National Pollution Prevention Roundtable, through which I've met folks in other states and other pollution prevention programs who have done work with the metal fabrication and finishing sectors. And so I've amassed their resources here as well to show you in this presentation. But the idea is that there's so much that has been done in this sector, so many resources that are available to you that you can learn from and potentially just implement at your facilities, learning from someone else's project that's already been implemented and found to be successful. So I am going to start with a general search at that tool that I introduced in the beginning, that P2 resources search tool. I went in and just put in the keywords metal finishing, and up came a metal finishing fact sheet and a review of metal finishing, an article that was put out. And there's 20 records that was found. I only did a screenshot to show you the first two that showed up, but there's a whole list of resources going to that search tool to get you started, and lots of reading that you can do and see what's applicable to the facility that you're working at. So then I'm going to go next to the other resources I'm most familiar with at TURI, the Toxic Use Reduction Institute, where I worked for quite a while. And you can find a lot of these resources at turi.org, and you find our business page and then the industry and small business section. And then within the industry sectors that are listed, there's fabricated metal products and metal finishing. And both of those host a whole bunch of materials that have been created. And here is just a sample of projects that I worked on while I was at TURI, and showcase how we've helped these facilities eliminate the use of their NPB, which is a higher hazard substance listed in Massachusetts under the Toxic Use Reduction Program. And so it was real key for this facility to get rid of the use of that chemical. Also Umicore electrical materials and how they eliminated the use of perchloroethylene and switched to a vacuum degreaser with a safer solvent blend. And then Riverdale Mills, which was a really fun facility to work with because the engineer there came up with designed all by himself, a double roller system that helped eliminate the solvent drip, kept it in the tank where it was coming from, and then reduced the contamination of the rinse tank that followed. And there's a great video on the website that shows it in action. So it doesn't have to be an existing solution. It may be that someone needs to get creative at the facility and design something new and unique that works in their situation. So again, each of these blurbs here where it says learn more links to case studies and videos that you can read about these different projects. And each one of these projects, I know it shows here in the summary that CD Aero is now saving $46,000 per year. Each one of these case studies has a financial analysis to show how they were actually saving money by doing pollution prevention projects. And I think it's a really useful tool to take to other facilities to show, even if they're not in your state, but show them, look, these guys did this project and this is how much money they're actually saving, and show how it affects their bottom line in a positive way. Again, I mentioned that there were videos about these projects on our site. So there's one about Riverdale Mills, one about River Street Metal Finishing. There's one about CD Aero and a few others. So it's kind of entertaining to watch. And we capture the process in the video so you can actually see what's going on at the facility. So then another organization that does great pollution prevention work is MNTAP, University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Technical Assistance Program. And again, you can get to their information on their website, and they have specific resources available for machining and metal manufacturing. They also have a very robust intern program, and they've got a lot of intern program resources that may be interesting for you guys to take a look at and see what their interns have been up to and what they have produced as far as case studies and videos as a result of their pollution prevention projects. So I just put in some screenshots of what you'll find on their website. Here, information under the machining and metal fabrication. Again, they have lots of case studies and analyses and lessons learned on the projects that they've done at these types of facilities. And they've categorized them in these different topic areas. So if you want to learn more about energy efficiency, that's where you'll go to, or TCE alternatives, which was also a project they partnered with TURI on. If you want to look more into machine shops, so they've separated their resources in that way. And then they also have a homepage specifically on metal finishing, and they do the same thing there. They separate it by category, so you can dive a little deeper into what specifically you might be interested in. Then also California, I had worked with folks in California, specifically Los Angeles Sanitation District. They had done a great program there where they were training their pre-treatment inspectors about pollution prevention projects, and they generated training for them and also a checklist, which unfortunately isn't available electronically. I have another checklist to show you, but this training for the pre-treatment inspectors was designed so that these inspectors, they're already at the facility, and the intent is that they can help the facility identify pollution prevention projects, but all the resources, all these different units that they have within their training might also be a good sort of training guide for you guys to take a look at on your own to see what sort of things they're able to introduce or suggest to the facilities that they go visit when they do their inspections. So you can sort of pretend like you're a pre-treatment inspector and go through and check out and see if there might be ideas that you can take from this training to implement at your facility. So again, the California didn't have their checklist online, but New Jersey has one, Metal Finishers Pollution Prevention Checklist. Again, the website is there. It's a PDF form. This is just a screenshot of like the first page of it. It's a very long checklist, but gives you all sorts of ideas for what to look for within pre-finishing, within the plating process, with their inventory of materials, alternative materials to look at, just a whole host of ideas that it doesn't mean you need to do all of them. They're not all going to be applicable. It's maybe too much to do all of them, but it's a checklist to get you started, get you thinking, and maybe slowly tick off what works at the facility you're at. And also New York State Pollution Prevention Institute has done a host of work with metal finishing and metal fabrication. And again, their website under their New York State P2I resources is another search tool that you can go and look and see what you can find related to the industries that you're working with. These were some of the results that I found when I went searching on their site and the different challenges that they were working with the facilities. One had to do with rinse water and one had to do with chemical use assessment and plating operations. But the case studies that they put together very nicely laid out with what the challenge was, what the solution was, what the results were. So it's a real easy way to quickly learn about the project that they did and see if it might be applicable in your facility that you're working with. And of course, they're all, the full case studies are available on the website and in PDF form. So that's what I put together for resources that you all might find helpful. And I'm more than happy to take questions from regional folks, state folks, interns, whomever. Everybody's
Might
off
just-
busy reading materials.
I may just ask Joy, is it okay if we share, you had shared a presentation with this. Is it okay if we share this with the group?
Yes.
You've shared a lot of wonderful resources, and I suspect as time goes by, some individuals may want to go back to look to track some of these down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure how the best way to do the links was. So I put them in the presentation. And so, yeah, if you want to send out the presentation as is, that's absolutely fine. I'm like, I can't talk and plop them in the chat at the same time. I can't multitask that well.
Hey, Joe, I just had a question on other case studies. So like MinTap and even the ones that we create, and those type of things. So are those, besides being housed at like MinTap's website, are they also in
They
ERD?
should be
Oh.
cataloged in that search tool.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you can access them either way. Okay.
Yeah, our intent was to put everything we could find in that one location.
Great. Anyone have any other questions for Joy on accessing the resources or just information on case studies?
I don't have a question, but maybe just more of a comment to just echo what has been said. I really appreciate what you presented, Joy, because I feel like for me, I mean, I knew ERG and, resources available and sort of in broader senses what you guys might be able to assist with. And so this was really educational for me to know kind of the depth of resources and maybe, assistance with research and things like that, that you guys can do. And so I think it's definitely going to be something that we'll be able to, I think, better utilize now moving forward. So just informationally, I was really appreciative. That was great.
Yeah, good. And I just, I want you guys to think of it as there's no reason not to reach out. Like we can always say, ooh, this is a much bigger project that we can tackle, but and or find other places for you to look at. You know, the question that I answered for Oregon. I mean, I couldn't spend the time fully summarizing all those resources for them, but I was able to accumulate all the resources that then they could go sort through, and it helped give them some direction with the research that they were doing. So just, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out for sure, and we can figure out the best path forward.
And I think honestly, even in those cases, even just the accumulation of resources is the hard, I mean, you know, just the time for us to do, I mean, like, that's a huge service just in and of itself, because as you said, that just gives us then kind of more focused information to go through and kind of find what we need to do then ourselves for next steps. So, I mean, that's just great. Even just that.
Right. And it worked that I knew where to go to find that information. And if there's a different, you know, a Tosca related, that's not me, but there's someone at ERG who has more Tosca related knowledge, and they can easily put together the resources you need. So that's why don't hesitate to reach out. We'll figure it out, whatever direction it takes or whatever it looks like in the end, we'll figure it out.
Great. Thank you again, Joy. I just have to say, although I was aware of many of these resources, having a summary is so helpful to remind me that we better go here and there. So thank you.
Great. You're welcome. Well, enjoy the rest of your meeting, and we'll see y'all later.
All right. Thank you, Joy.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, the next section of our agenda was really just to kind of facilitate any additional discussions on kind of best practices or case studies that we're seeing in our states. Really on the metal fabrication machining side, as Joy showed, you know, some great case studies from MinTap and others. I've seen some of those and they're really well done. I've seen others from other states, and I've seen some from the ERG as well. And we just kind of want to see if there's any discussions anyone wants to have. I can kind of tell you some of the things we're seeing here in Missouri. We have a lot of metal fabrication and machining. That's really a lot of the companies that we're working with right now. And the things that we typically see, opportunities, things that are there, and in terms of what companies are actually implementing, a lot of it has to do with water conservation, wash solution, extending bath life of tanks where they're cleaning materials, cleaning metal materials, prepping them prior to painting or coating. We're seeing companies implement a lot of strategies, whether it's countercurrent rinsing, reduce flow, filtration to extend bath life. These things are resulting in millions of gallons of water that are being conserved. Other things we're seeing in terms of machining side is coolant management. A lot of opportunities there with companies. I'm always interesting to see the extent of coolant management that companies do or do not do that generate a lot of waste due to the coolant going rancid or adversely affecting tool life, these type of components. So we've done some work with them to develop some coolant management strategies to extend the life of the coolant, as well as retain the coolant back in, reducing drag out from or carry out through chips, those type of operations, which end up just as a waste material. And then obviously on the machining side, it's a lot of energy, a lot of everything from compressed air leaks to still some lighting opportunities, but also industrial heating. So a lot of oven systems for dry off, curing ovens, those type of opportunities, converting from convection air to infrared or blending those strategies. So a lot of great opportunities. I worked a lot of my career in metal fabrication machining, so it's fun for me to be back into those. But it's really interesting in Missouri. We have a lot. I was really surprised when we started our program here at the extent of metal fabrication machining that we have in Missouri. So through our partnerships with Manufacturing Association and others, we're starting to see a lot of uptick in these companies looking for assistance. Anyone else have any thoughts or any kind of common issues that you're seeing in metal fabrication machining or even metal finishing in your areas?
Maybe
We're all
not.
very quiet today.
Well, Doug, I would say I don't have necessarily anything to add, but just maybe in follow-up to what you shared, I was just curious, kind of given your like that uptick in work that you were talking about, working with a lot of them. Do you find that just in your work with them, do you have some specific resources that you find yourself kind of constantly going back to and relying on just in your experience?
Yeah, a lot of it is honestly with the ERG, I really need to use it more. I'm used to just, I know states that have done some things like MNTAP and Illinois and others, even within our region that have case studies. So I know who's kind of doing something, so I'll search there, but I love going, I like what ERG's done and trying to consolidate all that because it does make it a kind of a better, more of a one-stop shop. I have reached out, there's on the metal finishing side, when you get into plating processes, that's such a science that I know quite a bit. I have a lot of exposure to it, but it's something that's still trying to learn. And I have found some experts in the field that have written extensively on it that I'll reach out to talk to about different ideas that I'm looking at in terms of whether it's water conservation or extending plating solution life. Trying to find those experts sometimes is a challenge. But it's one thing I meant to ask ERG if they have access to some of those people rather than the case studies. If there's experts in the field that we can reach out through ERG, that would be something, would be a great resource for them to be able to make available. I still struggle trying to find them sometimes. But.
Hey, Bruce, Bruce, sorry, not Bruce, Doug. I was going to say too, as I was, as I was looking, you had mentioned earlier some of the stuff that you were doing, and I noticed we have a comment or a question in chat. Just wanting to ask, I think when you were talking about some of the work that you have done with some of the ovens at some of the facilities that you were describing, was it switching from convection air to infrared or the other way around?
It's actually a lot of them. What we're seeing is going from convected air to infrared or blending those. So we've seen a couple companies right now. I have one company that's working with their oven manufacturer and actually adding infrared at the opening of the oven to bring the metal temperature up. This is for a powder coater, and then using convected air towards the back end of the oven to provide that full gelling of the coating on the metal. So the infrared does a great job of bringing that metal up to temperature really quickly, which lends to the curing process. So a lot of these places are, they struggle with square footage. So they're trying to retrofit existing ovens. They can't add more feet to that oven. So they're trying to get more creative at how can we blend infrared in or go to it completely. And try to minimize the square footage. So, but at the same time, obviously, they're saving quite a bit of energy as well.
That was a great question too, by the way, Maxim. So thank you for asking that. I appreciate that because I didn't know that either. So that's great. And
obviously insulation is great, and openings in these ovens and stuff are always an issue. We just purchased an infrared camera that I get to start playing with, which is great because you can take external temperature readings and stuff with digital thermometers of these ovens and kind of get an idea of the temperature. And obviously, but one thing that I've seen them struggle with is trying to capture that heat, reclaim it, especially in convected air ovens where it's kind of being forced out to a point. So trying to put air knives in on the openings, some of these things, trying to shorten the openings as best they can. A lot of different strategies, but that's a tremendous amount of heat loss that these companies struggle with.
Doug, this is Bruce. Kind of a question on the insulation. We've got several facilities who are working this summer that have quite a few ovens. And I like your air knife suggestion to think about. The question I have is, are there any limitations you've run into in where, from a warranty standpoint of the oven, you're allowed to add insulation on the oven? That's kind of something we're starting to think about with one facility particularly.
I haven't heard anything on warranties. Mostly some, the companies we're dealing with are so old, these ovens are kind of just, sometimes you think that they're just pulled out of a cornfield sometimes. So there's really no warranty whatsoever. They're just trying to struggle with, what other materials can they add, trying to retrofit these. And that's the hardest part, is retrofitting something that's there. Those that can go to building something new, great, they can do a lot with insulation, but trying to retrofit, adding insulation is a challenge. Okay.
I might just kind of encourage the different students online. If any of you do have questions, please ask or put them in the chat. This might be a good opportunity. I have a feeling there's a few of them who are processing and thinking right now.
Hi, so Chris from PPI K-State. I just wanted to also talk a little bit. We have very similar projects to what Doug just brought up for Missouri. We are dealing with a lot of cleaning materials, a lot of some nasty solvents, trying to replace them. Some oven heat loss. So trying to see if we can come up with ways of maybe reusing the heat or coming up with some better insulation, a lot of compressed air projects and lighting as well. And in terms of a resource, so just one resource that we've been reaching out to when it comes to metal fabrication is the Surface Technology Environmental Resource Center. So STERC. So they have a really good website with a lot of tools and calculators that we can also use, and we've been spreading out the information to interns that are working with metal fab, because they do have some really nice resources for them as well.
Chris, did I capture that correctly in the notes? You said it was the Surface Technology and Resource Center. Is that
Environmental Resource Center?
And
so it's STERC.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to make sure I had that right.
Yeah, their website is basically stirc.org.
Speaking of it, actually, that's something I want to pose to you. And I don't know, Chris, if you guys done it, or Bruce, when you talk about ovens, especially in parts washing and painting processes, so you obviously have a drying oven, and then you have a curing oven. One company that I worked with years ago, I actually helped to put in a powder coating system, and our curing oven was on top of our dry off oven. So we actually just used gravity. We actually were able to take the excess heat from the dry off oven and actually pump it right into the curing oven to reduce the energy consumption side. So just heat rising, we actually just captured it, just run it in there. But I actually talked to one company about doing that same model of capturing the dry off and moving it to the curing oven, or vice versa. And just want to know, has anyone worked with anyone that's actually done that using any type of blowers or anything to move that heat, and how you've managed the airflow and maintaining the temperatures in those ovens when mechanically moving that air?
I haven't seen that before, but that's very interesting, because the stacking idea seems pretty interesting, but depending on the size of the oven, it might not be feasible. So basically blowing the hot air from one oven to the other, it's a pretty interesting strategy. I've never seen that before at any facility.
Well, I'll keep you all posted. I'm working with one company. We're going to pull in their oven manufacturer and talk to them about that, just because a lot of the ovens we're seeing, I'm really not seeing stacked ones anymore. We did it just because we were struggling with square footage, so we just stacked them. And it really worked very, very well from an energy standpoint. But most of these are inline systems where they're all on the ground level and you're moving that air sometimes quite a distance. So then it's duct work and it's insulation. So a lot of different factors, but we're kind of curious to see if we could do it, if we can mechanically move that, and how much energy, natural gas we could save by instead of just venting that heat outside, moving it through. But obviously you also have concerns of, when you any other, you don't want to, especially moving air into the dry or into the curing oven, in terms of making sure you're not introducing any contaminants or, some of those things that are going to cause problems with the finish. So it's a great idea. I'm just trying to figure out, trying to find someone who's done it before to get that idea. So if you come across anyone, let me know. So
Will do.
okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, one thing I'll mention out to interns, as you guys are researching those resources, if there's anything, if obviously you have the resources in your state, we have resources in our region. So whether you're in Iowa, if you want to reach out to us in Missouri, Kansas, or Nebraska, feel free. Vice versa. The more we share within our region and learn, that really helps us all too. So. And you guys are going to working on I know you're working on some great fun projects in the companies, and you'll probably come up with some unique ideas and unique best practices. That'd be great to share. So look forward to that. All right. Well, the next thing on our agenda, checking some time. Oh, we got 14 minutes. We wanted to talk about